One issue scholars face when they try to interpret artworks is assessing artistic intention. How is it possible for us to truly know what the creators of a work of art, not that just the artist, but also patrons, intended to communicate through the visual forms? Apart from literalness, such as a throne is a throne, there are additional meanings that may be intentionally implied. For example, in early Buddhist art from India, there was the footprint motif, which has been viewed by scholars as substitutes for an anthropomorphic portrayal of Shakyamuni Buddha. For instance, a carving such as this one, showing Indra and Brahma paying reverence to a pair of footprints, has been theorized to be identical in subject to an image of these two Vedic gods venerating a Buddha in human form. Some scholars interpret objects such as trees, stupas, and wheels as depictions of the Buddhist life events. There is also the theory that these objects actually represent a distinct subject matter and show the veneration of these objects. In considering the role of footprints in early Buddhist art, supporters of the aniconic theory have viewed them as a surrogate for a figure, similar to motifs that have physicality, such as trees or stupas. Another theory is that the footprints do not function as symbolic substitutes, even though they do refer to the Buddha indexically. Instead, the theory is that the footprints should be understood as literal footprints, imprints left by the Buddha's feet at specific locations. Buddhist texts describe the Shakyamuni Buddha's footprints as larger than those of an ordinary human, and marked with designs, particularly the wheel, that matched the auspicious patterns on the soles of his feet with which he was born. The sheer number of occasions, literally tens of thousands, when the Buddha is reputed to have left his footprints, means that there is no single Buddha life event or location with which footprints can be exclusively associated. The Buddha leaving footprints would have been a conscious choice, as he is commonly described as having hovered above the ground instead of walking. Sometimes, his footprints only became visible under certain circumstances and to select individuals. Broadly, the rendering of footprints in the early art, from before the Common Era to the start of the Common Era, fall into two artistic categories: footprints carved on individual sculpted platforms, and footprints in relief carvings, nearly all of which include footprints as elements in complex narrative scenes. Footprints occurring on separate sculpted objects, often with the lotus base, can be treated as a distinct category. These objects might also be called footprint platforms, and such works were likely placed directly on the ground or pavement with a carved footprint on the upper surface. For example, this footprint platform is from Nagarjunakonda in Andhra Pradesh in India and dates to approximately the 3rd century of the Common Era. It consists of a rectangular platform supporting a pair of intricately carved footprints. The footprints are raised above the base, and to the proper left of the footprints is a low relief carving of a Bodhi tree with devotional figures. In front of the tree is a seat upon which no figure is depicted, with a small pair of footprints in front of it. The main pair of footprints bears marks found on the soles of the Buddha's feet, including a large, recessed wheel near each heel. The lengthy dedicatory inscription identifies the subject as Bhagavagato Pada, that is, the feet of Bhagavat. The term Bhagavat is an honorific often used to refer to Shakyamuni. This inscription clearly identifies the subject of the work as the footprints themselves, and not as a symbol of a figure. As this footprint platform was placed inside a monastery, it is hypothesized that it was an object of veneration in its own right. Footprints also occur in a variety of contexts in the early Buddhist relief compositions of India, suggesting that different events, locations, and activities are intended. Despite their presumed importance, there are only a handful of examples that present footprints as the sole focal point of devotion. Instead, the reliefs that include footprints generally incorporate them as an element of a larger scene. This example from Amaravati shows a group of figures paying reverence to a pair of footprints on a pedestal-like platform in an entrance area to an elaborate decorated stupa. The placement of this footprint pedestal seems to comport with the fine spot of the Nagarjunakonda example mentioned previously. Dating from the late phase of Amaravati, so around the 3rd century, this carving depicts figures of Buddhas at the base of the 5 pillars above the stupa entrance, and in the scene just to the right of the 5-pillar group. The coexistence of the footprint platform and Buddha figures within a single work undermines the aniconic theory's claim that the footprints were used as a surrogate for a figural Buddha because of a reluctance to depict said Buddha. In another carving from Amaravati, we see an elaborate decorated stupa. Here, rather than being part of the devotional activity within the stupa space, 2 footprint platforms occur as part of the sculptural program adorning the stupa. That these are platforms is clear from the rectangular slab upon which the footprints appear. Located in the upper register of the stupa decoration, each platform is covered by an honorific umbrella and has devotees behind it. A seated Buddha appears in the vignette just below the 5 pillars. Therefore, again, the footprint platforms most likely did not serve as surrogates for Buddha figures, but rather as important objects in their own right. In conclusion, footprints were primarily portrayed in art as vestiges left by the Buddha in places where his feet rested or stepped, as he traveled throughout his homeland and to places beyond. This suggestion comports with both Buddhist literary accounts and widespread devotional practices to footprints.